Hi, welcome to the ICSC part of my Lost in Literature channel. Today I will be doing Daffodils by William Wordsworth, and I have once again Kavish in front of me, one of my favorite students. And what I like about Kavish is he listens to me very carefully and he notes down questions. And at the end of it, he'll start shooting his questions, and I had better give him proper explanations for it. I really love that. So if you have questions, you too can ask me. Put it down in the comments, and I'll get right back to you. This poem is called The Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So there you are, the poet was wandering. He had no particular destination in mind. He was wandering without a purpose, roaming. And he felt as lonely as a cloud, right? A simile here for you. He was really feeling maybe a little sad, a little lonely, and he was walking around in this disconsolate manner. And where was he walking? He was walking in a rather hilly place with its own ups and downs. And he probably turned a corner, and suddenly he came upon the daffodils, golden yellow daffodils, bright as a day. And there it was, and not just a patch of daffodils, but a whole lot of daffodils, a whole lot of it, all right? And it grew beside the lake, okay? You're talking about a lake here. And it grew beneath the trees, beside the lake, and it was fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Now, you know what happens to flowers, when they're out there and not plucked and then in a floral arrangement on the table, but out in nature where they are growing wildly beside the lake and maybe in a wooded area. And there is breeze blowing, and you can imagine the flowers moving in kind of rhythm with the breeze, with the wind blowing, right? And in doing so, Wordsworth has literally personified the daffodils, because they are dancing like we do in joy. All right? And now we move on to the second stanza. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. Now the personification develops even more in this stanza, and he also gives you an idea of the way the daffodils stretched along the margins of the bay, the border, along the edge of the lake, right into infinity, as far as his eyes could see, almost like the stars that shine, that twinkle on the Milky Way. And it's one heck of a comparison, because thereby he is implying the infinity of this stretch of daffodils disappearing into the horizon. And you can imagine the stunning yellow presence of the daffodils. And it was not one daffodil that he could see at a glance. He saw 10,000, literally. It was beyond count, the number of daffodils that he could see at a glance. You can imagine the vitality, the intensity of this image. Golden daffodils, all right? Just stretching to the ends of earth, so to speak, stretching away to the horizon and dancing, tossing their heads, all right, in a sprightly dance. He has carried on the personification to another level now. They were literally tossing their heads and, moving very joyously along with the breeze. So now we know that he was standing and looking at a fantastic scene, resplendent with the yellow of the daffodils. And moving on to the third stanza, the waves beside them danced. So he was near a lake. The wave beside them danced, but they, the daffodils, outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. All right, now what's happening here? The poem is building into something. He's comparing the daffodils to the waves now of the lake. And according to him, the daffodils surpassed the sparkling waves, right? The sun was shining on the waves. The water was catching the sun in glints and sparkles. But the daffodils outdid the waves. They surpassed the waves in their movement. All right? It was better than the waves. They were better than the waves. And when you are right in the midst of such a scene, such a beautiful surrounding, you cannot help but be happy, joyous, filled with merriment, because you are in the company of the daffodils, just surrounded by them. You're drunk with the beauty of them, and you are as merry as they are when they dance in the breeze. I gazed and gazed, but little thought. It never occurred to him at that moment. He was just drinking in the scene. He stood there, totally spellbound, all right, with the so-called antics of the daffodils blowing in the wind, which appeared to him like a dance in spring. He did not realize the wealth that this experience had brought to him. What kind of wealth, what kind of value could this experience have brought to him? What effect did this have on Wordsworth? Yes, it changed his mood. He was no longer as lonely as a passing cloud. He was in the presence of extremely sprightly flowers. But let's go on to the fourth stanzas to find out how the daffodils affected him on a long-term basis. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Now, what happens? He's talking about something which happened much, much later after his experience, right, you know, on those hills beside the lake. And he's talking about those times when he was either bored or when he was in a thoughtful, reflective mood, and he lay on his couch and then he was, kind of musing over things. And suddenly, in his inward eye, in the screen of his mind, in his imagination, suddenly there would be this picture of the daffodils. It would flicker into existence in his imagination. It would shine upon his inward eye, which is his imagination. And immediately it would give him relief, because this picture he carried in his mind, in the computer of his mind, which he had stored in his memory, was very much the bliss, the happiness that he would derive in his lonely hours. And suddenly his heart would fill with pleasure and start dancing with the daffodils. He would no longer feel bored or unhappy or lonely. That's it for today. Thank you so much. If you have any doubts, do get to me in the comments. I will be happy to answer all your questions.